Hello everyone, welcome to the 5th development log for Legends of Mythology. Let me show you what I've been working on during the last year. I've been working on a bunch of music for the game, some of which will be playing in the background throughout the devlog here. The first thing you'll probably notice is that the visuals got an overhaul. It's come a long way from the first version for sure. Let me go through everything in a little more detail. So I started out refactoring the inventory system, which took me a long time, but I effectively halved the size of the code while adding all the new functionality that I needed. This means all the character stances should now be working properly. The character has 4 stances depending on the item equipped in the left hand: empty, bindle, other one-handed items, and two-handed items. I implemented the character hurt/knockback animation and the first death animation as well. I want to do more death animations later during the polishing phase, but this is the one that's going to be used throughout development. It's a bit of a throwback to some classics you might recognize. Along with that, I also updated the game over screen with some blood filling up the screen. Then I made the attack animations and set up colliders for them. I made some changes to the inventory system, so you can see all your stat totals for every damage and armor type. It shows you green or red numbers to show you if another item with the same element type is stronger or weaker at a glance. I gave the main menu an overhaul to make it a bit more interesting visually. Also re-implemented the resolution drop-down in the graphics options. So to make the parallax effect a bit more pronounced, I split up the background parallax layer into 3 separate layers and have them running at separate speeds. Then I added some gold coins, health and mana orbs. The orbs increases maximum health or mana and will be awarded as drops from bosses, helping the player to overcome the estimated difficulty curve of the game. I had a problem for a long time with my ground detection, where the game wouldn't recognize the character being grounded and able to jump while the character was standing on the edge of a platform. I fixed this by using a boxcast raycast instead of using the physics 2D overlay box to check whether the character was grounded or not. Now it works like a charm. Particles are great for player feedback, so I used Unity's particle system to make some particles for running, jumping, landing and turning. While working on the character controller, I implemented Coyote Time, which is a widely used feature in platformers that makes you able to jump slightly after you walk over an edge. It may not seem logical, but it feels really good to play. I also added a jump buffer, so that if you hit the jump button slightly before you land on the ground, it will still trigger the jump after you land. Previously, the crouch speed modifier would only be applied when you were touching the ground. Now it will also be applied in midair if you left the ground while crouched. At this point I decided to implement Unity's new input system, which I'm still struggling a little bit to figure out 100%, but it's somewhat working as intended now. Although I do have one problem with the keyboard opening and closing the in-game menu when it's just supposed to open it. It works absolutely fine with the gamepad, so I find it a bit weird. So if you're trying out the tech demo with the keyboard and mouse, you need to Alt F4 your way out of the game in this version. Then I added a clamp on the camera, so it can't go beyond a certain threshold for each individual scene. Now there's no more of that situation where you're at the edge of the scene and half the screen is just black. Camera shake is another great way to give some feedback to the player, so I implemented that when the player takes damage for now. So for this update, the key thing was to build the foundation for every item in the game. I started with the booster shoes, a mid to late game item that gives the player double jump. Then I put in the thruster pack, which is also a mid to late game item, which gives you a boost forwards, adding to your current velocity. Which leads me to the grappling hook. It's working alright, but I have a few issues that I need to address with it to make it work completely as intended. The kitchen knife, the first one-handed melee weapon. Melee weapons have what I call a 5-directional attack. You can attack vertically up, 45 degrees up, horizontal, crouched horizontal, and crouched 45 degrees downwards. The Spyhander is the first two-handed melee weapon that I decided to put in, because who doesn't love a Spyhander? And if you ever wanted to be in the shoes of David, I made sure to put a sling in the game, which will probably be the only one-handed ranged weapon. But if you want a bit of an upgrade, you could go for a staff sling, which is a bit more powerful and can throw rocks a bit further. Being inspired by historical arms and armor a lot, I made a short bow as an early game bow item. Bows won't be able to be shot while you're crouched, and it would be a bit of a bastard if I excluded crossbow type weapons. So I put in a light crossbow and an arbalest. The arbalest has a different reloading animation from normal crossbows, and a bit longer too. But it is a more powerful weapon in the game, so the extra reload time will be a trade-off. Without sorcery, there is no swords in sorcery, so I put in a magic branch that fires an earth elemental projectile that's currently bugged and does no damage. Then I put in a balaclava and a cape, and then I put in the buckler as the first shield, and you can block while standing and while crouched. Finally, after putting in all the items, I made the entity component so you can actually damage entities in the world. I fixed some transition mistakes in the animator systems of my character and the character item overlays, and everything seems to be fairly in order now. I do keep finding a mistake here and there though, but with like 100 animation clips for the character in each individual overlay, there is a lot of room for human error, so it might take me a little bit to get it 100%. Then I hooked up the compass flipping, so it flips to show you the compass directions of the scene you're currently in. So here you can see that it flips 180 because the camera flips 180 when you're going in and out of the house. Then my old CRT monitor pretty much died on me. At the end, the only way I was able to see anything at all on it was if I enabled the Magic Bright function on the monitor and cranked up the brightness and gamma in NVIDIA control panel. So I got myself a new monitor, although I do need a new graphics card to run it properly with G-Sync. At the end, I was doing a sprint to detail the vegetation and improve my character animations, and remove the outlines from the character as well as the NPCs. I overworked myself a little bit to get this out the door, so please do head on over to my itch page and download the latest version. It's available for Windows, Mac OS and Linux. I'd appreciate any kind of feedback on anything I have in the game as of now. You can get in touch with me on Discord and Twitter. I've pretty much stopped using Facebook, although I might put this devlog up here. My social links are down in the description of the video as well. So all this stuff over here is done. Now I need to make all this stuff and I can start expanding the world and begin to get some actual gameplay in the game. Hopefully it won't be another year before I release a new version, but I do have school to attend to. Anyway, that's all I have for now. I'm gonna take a little break, and then I'll get right back at it again. Later, folks!